welcome to the 102nd episode of the Sales Podcast. Who'd ever thunk it? We're still alive and kicking. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Thank you for listening wherever you may be. At the treadmill, commuting, sitting on an airplane, sitting in the office, taking some notes, wherever it is. Thank you for tuning in, for subscribing. And I know you've shared a little love online, given a 5-star review on iTunes. If you haven't, there's still time. And I'll give you that time right now. So go ahead and pause it. Head on over to thesalespodcast.com, click over to iTunes, and leave a review, pretty please. But until then, I've got a good guy on today, Gene Hammett. What an interesting story. I've never had quite $2.9 million, but I've also not lost $2.9 million. He has a great rags to riches, back to rags, and back to riches again kind of story that we all need to hear and understand. You know, I've mentioned it before, but things are never what they appear. So many people, unfortunately, are phonies, they're fakes, or they're leading you to believe it's much easier, it's much simpler than it looks to achieve whatever it is, whatever type of success they're putting out there. But it's a lot of work, okay? And there's a lot of skinned knees, a lot of scraped knuckles along the way. Like Pat Flynn calls himself the crash test dummy. Let's see what works. I feel like I'm along the same path. I think we are crash test dummies. And I have made mistakes. I've constantly tried new things. Like Gene, you'll hear his story, but putting too much faith and trust into partners that screw things up and leave you holding the bag. That's happened more times than I care to admit. But how you bounce back is what matters. We see these cute images and memes. Success is getting knocked down 7 times and getting back up 8 times. Yes, that's true. And it's easy to make a little image saying that, but living it is another story, okay? So that's why I had Gene on. I think you'll enjoy his outlook on life, how he approaches things. He's honest about what led to his failure, and he's honest now about what is contributing to his success. So enjoy this interview with Gene. Gene Hammett, leaders in the trenches, all the way from Atlanta, hot Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Wes?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
I'm excited to be here.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show. Man, you're already marketing the heck out of that. I got to up my game. Good grief. You got a promotion engine going on.
I do, and I believe in systems, Wes. That
there you go.
It goes on behind me.
There you go. So tell us about this. Tell us about you first, and then let's talk about systems.
All right. I am Gene Hammett, like you said, and I am a strategic business coach.
Okay.
Where do I start here? I mean, I could talk about so many things. I love sales. I think sales is the most critical skill and talent that you can develop and be on a road to mastery. I don't think you ever master it completely.
Right.
But I believe that if you are a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, and you would rather give sales to someone else, it's a problem.
As Mr. T would say, I pity the fool.
Yeah, and I see it so many times. They're like, I was at a conference. I was on a panel, and we were talking about hiring a salesperson. And I literally said, raise your hand if you think you're going to hire a salesperson that's just going to take over these activities and just sell your business the way you want it sold. And there were like 24 people raising their hand out of 100. And I said, let me tell you right now.
And they were drunk, and they misheard the question.
And I said, you all are going to, either you've already wasted money or you're going to waste a lot of money if you don't learn how to sell first yourself and train people how to sell the way you want to sell. Mm-hmm. And I said, let me ask another question. Who has made that mistake? And you have like 10 people raise their hand like, yep, I lost a bunch of money.
Only 10?
Yep.
Others just weren't being honest.
I think a lot of them just knew that they were selling for themselves. It all depends on the audience. So it wasn't a huge audience. It was an audience full of technical, digital agency kind of people. And, that's one of the things that I believe in. You've got to learn how to sell. You've got to learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and learn how to do this in a way that there's no resistance.
Do what? Selling?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I always say there's two types of sales, easy ones and those you don't get.
Yeah.
So what does this mean, strategic business coach, man? Is that just, I hear that all the time. Is that just some made up stuff? Did you just make that up just to?
It's something that's evolving. I'll tell you where it came from.
All right.
Let's break it down. Business coach. I became a business coach about 4.5 years ago. I was running a very successful business until it was no longer successful.
Okay.
That's a way to say that, over 9 years, I built up a business. I had a team, I had a sales team, I had all those things in place, and I trusted my best friend way too much. I gave him a lot of money on a contract that didn't get performed, and it put me out of business. It completely just blindsided me. Didn't see it coming. That was January 15th, 2010. So from there, I realized I was focusing on the wrong things in my business. I was focusing on the money I was making and about what that did for me and my family and that safety. Well, it wasn't very safe. And when it was all taken away, I went back to what can never be taken from me. And I thought about the way I make people feel and the impact I make in the lives of others. And so I thought about my business coach that helped me grow my business back in the day, and how I doubled it every year for 4 years straight, the profits.
Okay.
So it went from 30 to 60, from 60 to 120, and 120 to 240, and it kept going up from there.
Okay.
And so I thought about how she made me feel, how she made me, listening to me and the validation, and I thought, I'm going to become a business coach. I reached out to Linda. Again, this was about 12 years later. And I said, remember me? And she's like, yeah, I remember you. And she goes, this is what's been going on. I sold about $40 million worth of inventory for my business until everything went away. Here's what happened. I want to be a business coach. Is that going to be a problem? She goes, not unless it's a problem for you. And so I went and got formal training, which most people don't do. And I knew I needed to have a depth around this that I just didn't have access to. I was a very accomplished business owner, but I did not have access to the value of questions. And I know you believe that in a sales process. And now I believe the work I've done in coach training has made me a better salesman because of the questions I ask and about listening. So go ahead.
Do you think your failure makes you better qualified to be a coach?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt, because I had never seen a failure. I had never seen troubling times, really. I mean, I went through things I just had to learn, and that was some of those frankly sucked. But I think going through the failure, I'm in touch with what a lot of business owners have. I mean, my first business, 2001, the first year, I had over $3 million in sales.
Good grief! What were you selling?
I had a ticket business where I sold tickets and tours to sporting events.
Wow.
So I had high ticket items, fairly low margins, but it was business just based on money. And so I learned the hard way that there's so much more to business than just the money. Like, you've got to think about money, but what about the impact you're making? And so now as a business coach, I really feel like I can really go gung ho about what I do. I wake up thinking about it. I'm thankful that Monday comes because I get to do what I love to do. And that's the business coaching side to that question. The other side is something that's been emerging. You know how on LinkedIn, people can vote on, give you like accolades on the things that you're good at?
Right.
And it wasn't something I really thought about, but I went into, it seems like every 2 or 3 days, someone sends me an email that says, you know what, you're really good at strategy.
Cool.
And so I added, like, how do people see me in the world? Well, they see me as a very strategic person, entrepreneur. I have the business coach. And so I just kind of put those things together based on those little numbers.
Well, so I want to talk about your systems that you talked about in the very opening. But before we do that, I want you went out of business in 2010.
Yep.
How did you know it was time to let go? I mean, did you not have a choice? Because I know a lot of people, I want to talk about successes and how to win, yada, yada. But sometimes winning is cutting your losses. I've been beat all around the head, neck, face, chest, and breast area, held on too many times, followed the wrong path too many times. How did you know it's time to cut your losses and move on?
I'm going to take this in two parts. I think I was chasing the wrong path with that business. And I think there was a spiritual element of what's going on, but it was also, I just wasn't paying attention to the signs. Mm-hmm. And I hated what I was doing. I hated the business, even though I made a lot of money. Like in 2008, I was in Beijing. I probably sold over 10,000 tickets to people. And so I made over $1.3 million for me and my partners, profit. Mm-hmm. And so I was very good at what I did, but it was all about the money.
Right.
And I kept having this conversation. Anybody who would listen, my wife, my friends, people in the business, I said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And I was looking for that better way, but I would never let go of that business that I hated because it paid me so well.
It's the old can't get to second base with your foot still on first?
Yes. And I think that's a really good analogy to this. So it, as tough as it was for me to go through losing everything, when I say everything, I lost a business that was worth $1 million to $2 million, somewhere in that range, because of how much money it churned out every year. I lost my house. I lost my savings. I lost everything. So the choice to stay in the business was not really mine because it was made for me because of what happened.
So, I mean, was it all consuming? I mean, if you're making good money, couldn't you have let that keep going and then pursue other passions? Well, maybe it's on a simultaneous path.
Here's the nitty gritty of it. I lost $2.9 million and change. Okay. Now, some of that money was mine, but some of it was creditors, some of it was banks, and I made commitments on the money. So I took all this money in for my clients and paid my suppliers.
Okay.
And so I was caught in the middle when the supplier didn't deliver.
Right.
Period. So But
you were doing this for 9 years. I mean, at the 7-year point, I mean, I got to imagine you're making at least decent money right out of that. I mean, but did it take all your time and you couldn't develop a side gig, that you were passionate about?
I just never took the time to do it. I mean, I basically had a lifestyle business. I trained jiu-jitsu somewhere around 15 to 20 hours a week. Mm-hmm. So I have a purple belt in jiu-jitsu and a brown belt in Muay Thai. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did with my time. And then we traveled a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but I did invest back into the business. It wasn't a consuming thing. I didn't spend the money. That's kind of the sad part. I never really lived a big lifestyle. Yeah. I just invested back in the money and into the business because it took a lot of money to run the business. Right. And as I was growing, it took more investments. But when everything went away, I lost my merchant account. Right. So when you lose a merchant account in a business, it's really hard to sell and keep that business going. So I just never found one of the big things was I was expecting to make between $1 and $2 million on this contract. Mm-hmm. And so that was going to give me the cushion to either sell my business, put it on autopilot, and find the right business for me. But that never happened.
Right. Going after that one last big lick, huh?
I was positioned. I mean, I've done it many times before. I mean, I've had many $100,000 paydays in my business, and I think that it was hard to give up those things.
So, what did you learn about systems from all of that? Did you already know systems? Were you already good at strategy? You just weren't using those tools?
No, I think systems were very important. We had systems with everything that was running through our business. Like I literally could not show up for a week and things would have gone fine. I had put people in place to manage the day-to-day. I had people to do accounting. I had systems for pretty much everything. Now, I still had to do pricing and I still had to do big negotiations, but that's what I was set to do. And I set strategy for my business. I typically had to show up at these events because of the care that the customers required. Frankly, I liked going to these events, but also there was a lot of money involved, like sometimes millions. And so I had to be there to make sure everything got where it was done, got put in place. And who do you trust with $1 million worth of cash, literally? Mm-hmm. So systems became a way for me to be able to have free time. And if we project into today, if you don't have systems in place for sales, you really are just flying by the seat of your pants. And it will be really hard for you to bring someone on someday to teach them how to sell for you. So what can people do today? I mean, what are you coaching people to do to put those systems into place? And I mean, is there a particular software you recommend? Is it more of a mindset? There's certain softwares that you can use for sales. I think that you can use spreadsheets. You can use CRM systems. You can use, some of the more, one of the tools I'm kind of playing with right now is Pipedrive. Have you heard of that?
Nope.
So it's built by natural salespeople to show the flow of deals or opportunities through your pipeline.
Okay.
And you can customize your pipeline for your business, and then you can literally move people back and forth, and you can drill into it as you need to, and it keeps some analytics behind it. Pretty simple interface. I think there's a free version. There's a small cost to have more features. I've used spreadsheets though. When you have, follow-up is a very critical element to your success. Right. And most people do not have a follow-up system, because they take the business cards they get from clients and just put them in rubber bands or throw them in desk drawers and kind of forget about those people, even the ones that are high priority for them.
Are you saying rubber bands in a desk drawer is not the best way to follow up?
I am saying that if you put rubber bands around your cards and you let them sit there, that it's almost impossible for those to turn into leads.
If you have a coffee can full of business cards with rubber bands around it, you might be a redneck. Is that what you're saying?
True.
Are there any nuggets, any little things, big things? I mean, you can tell our listeners, like, do this and don't do that. I mean,
as far as follow-up, the most simplest things you can do is, I think it starts before the follow-up process, is when you're having a conversation with someone, how are you keeping the notes on what that opportunity looks like? So if you're going to contact them in 6 months, say, are you trusting your brain to remember that, what you talked about? Or are you putting that into some software or some spreadsheet, or writing it on the back of the card and having some way to remind yourself that when you call that person, you're not just going to check in. Like the check-in call, that's just a waste of time for most people, and they're never going to do this. But if you remembered that they had a problem with, let's say, their own sales, and that's what you sell, then your system would be to, when you meet that person, take the notes, keep track of it, put it into your calendar. I'm going to make these calls on this date, and I'm going to talk about this one question. That's pretty simple, right?
Well, but how do they get their salespeople to actually use the platform? I mean, I've seen this forever. Salespeople fight using systems. They fight CRMs. They call it Big Brother. I know successful salespeople that have told me point blank they don't put data in the CRM. They keep it in their phone. They keep it in their Outlook, because when they leave the company, they're taking all that with them, because that's their asset.
So the question is, what does a sales manager do or the business owner do?
Yeah, I mean, how do you get the people to use the system? Because if you have more than one salesperson, it's tough to keep track of everything they're doing.
It is. I mean, I know people that have multiple salespeople don't have a CRM system, and so everything kind of runs. Sales CRM. I mean, I've installed CRM systems in previous work and strategy work I did back in the day, and there is a resistance to it that you have to understand, but you also have to say, if you're really working on your pipeline and your deal flow, this will help you. Here's how it helps you, and give them the tools to help them. If they are resistant to the point of, these are my contacts and I'm going to take these with me when I go, I mean, I don't care how good that person is. You have to ask yourself, is this the kind of person and the team player that I need to build my business? And am I going to invest in this person long term?
Well, how do these business owners know what systems even to put in place? I've just seen it over and over again, at least for like sales managers. They get promoted from within, and because they were probably one of the top salespeople, and now they're a manager, and all the skills they had that made them a great salesperson makes them a terrible sales manager. But now here they are having to create systems, having to coach and be patient, and yada yada yada. Things that they're not qualified to do. So, I mean, are you working with those people? Or are you working more with like an owner?
I typically work with owners. So I work with entrepreneurs and owners that are selling their own deals and learning how to generate leads and sell for their business in a very authentic, natural way. I've been there and I've seen that. The person that's best at sales gets promoted to manager with very little management skills. And I think we even talked about this on our podcast, Wes, where you brought that up. Like the directness that makes you a great salesperson may not make you the best manager. So those people have to learn new skills, and they have to want to learn those new skills, and they have to be coached through it. So there's plenty of options to help the high performers in sales become great managers, so that they can transfer some of those skills to the new breed, the new blood.
So, I mean, it sounds like you get a lot into their sales and marketing, right? Because when I hear business coach, I think of, I don't know, operations, HR, all the nitty gritty behind the scenes. But do you spend more time on the sales and marketing than anything, or do you approach all of that?
I spend more time on sales and marketing than anything. And I spend most of my time in one specific area that really, I think, separates me from everyone else, which is understanding who your target market is and what the niche is inside that target market, and how do you identify the profitable niche, which is the people that are very hungry for what you have to offer, and how do you reach and serve them? That's where I spend a lot of my time.
So are there any pearls of wisdom around that you can share?
Yeah, tons. Most people approach their business as they will take anybody who has a check or a credit card, and they will take all of that business in because they're either just starting out, or that's just what they know. They see their peers around them taking just anyone and everyone, and that is really a recipe for pain and stress, because I think it takes the same amount of energy to identify who is a great fit for your company, who really inspires you, and then just focus on those people, as opposed to just taking the people who come to you from some seemingly natural way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, because one way or another, you're going to expend effort in business. You're either going to expend it cleaning up after the mess that's created because you just took anybody willy-nilly, or You can spend a little more time, create some systems, get really focused on who is ideal, maybe spend a little more time qualifying or even disqualifying, but then you can basically raise your prices, right? Charge more, get a happier client that's a better fit, and so you do less work on the back end, right?
Yep. And one of the things I love if you like nuggets, is once you've identified that ideal client, the one that's in the profitable niche, I call it the bullseye. So if you think about the outer rings of a bullseye would be the target market, the inner ring would be the niche inside there that is a really good fit for what you do, and the bullseye is that profitable niche. If you identify where those profitable niche people hang out, like at conferences, I've got a client now that has identified he wants to work with other coaches and speakers. And so there's a conference coming up in a few weeks where he's going to go to a room where there's 200 of those people that are looking to improve their branding. Mm-hmm. Now, he's a branding expert, so he's going to go into the room with 200 people that have invested money to do the things that he does, but there's not many people there that actually do the work behind it. Does that make sense?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, how does he know these? It's like a private group, or I mean, it's a workshop or something that he can buy a ticket and go into.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And it's basically, to be really clear about it, he does branding. He does websites and he does overall branding for people.
Right.
And so this client has identified, instead of just waiting for things to come in, he's going to say, I want to work with other speakers and coaches. And so this particular event is about how to create brand alignment that brings you to the next level. So they're going to talk about all of the elements of branding, but there's not going to be anyone there to actually do it for them. Like their website has to be changed now. And so he can come in, have conversations, and it's like shooting fish in a barrel, so to speak.
Well, I always talk about, great salespeople today are more about sifting and sorting rather than selling.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you just got to know where to sift and sort.
Right.
I think it's much harder, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and it depends on what you sell, but it's much harder to go into the traditional BNI and sales kind of networking to find people that want to do business, because all of those people are looking to do business with someone else. Mm-hmm. And so you're looking, I found a lot of my clients just would struggle over that. Those people don't want to buy anything. They want customers.
Right.
So we're looking at what are the strategies you can do that make sales easier, and really just doing the homework to find out who's hungry for what you have. That profitable niche pays off in spades. Right. I mean, I've seen people go through programs I've had, Wes. Once they get clear about this, literally make half a dozen phone calls, get 4 or 5 meetings, and end up getting $160,000 in sales. Just in three months from using those same exact strategies. Mm-hmm.
So my wife is coming in, giving me the look, because our 9-year-old, 364-day daughter is coming home for a surprise party. So with that in mind, how can people reach you? I know you've got a podcast. Is it Leaders in the Trenches? I know leadersinthetrenches.com is the best place to reach you on the web, correct?
That is the best place to reach me on the web. Social media wise, it's at Gene Hammett, GeneHammett. And you can find me on Facebook too, but that's a really good place to start. You can start with Wes's episode because we talked about sales in a different perspective.
Hey, look at you.
And you can go right in there to that. That episode is number 94. So if you want to go hear Wes be interviewed.
You mean it's not number 1? You didn't renumber everything, so I'd be number 1?
I didn't, but I can tell you this, Wes. It was surprising to me, but I actually had a client say that was a really good interview.
Look at that. See, I was on my meds that day, man.
So that's the best place they can get in touch with me. And if you want to think about what really makes me unique, and from a coaching standpoint, strategic, we explain that. The business coaching, we explain that.
Right.
I believe in intimacy. I truly believe that You don't need another book. You don't need another video. You don't need to read something that's going to help you with your business. You need someone to have a real conversation with you.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that if you don't find your ideal clients, and it's something really hard to do yourself, you've got to have a conversation with someone that's really skilled at doing this. And I've done it thousands of times. And I know a lot of people do it, but I've done it so many times that I know what comes up. I know the fears, and I know how to help people navigate through that process. Once you get that right, business, sales, systems, all that stuff gets much easier because you're able to create and serve these people like no one else.
And I see I'm on your site now. I see the contact and coaching. I mean, do you have like a free consultation, or how do people get started with you?
I do. I've debated on whether I should charge for these things because I know how valuable they are. I've actually talked about it with my own coach and some peers. I don't charge for them. It is a free consultation. I call it a vision session.
Okay.
So you can find out more information about that on the website. But it really is about where you're going, what's holding you back, and I've got 100% sex rate, 100% success rate on that being extremely valuable, and it's not a sales pitch. It is truly about serving you and getting clear about your next steps.
Cool. All right. Thank you, sir. I recommend everybody head on over leadersinthetrenches.com and go listen to the 94th episode of his podcast.
Well, perfect.
Well, thank you, sir. Have a great week. We're going to go eat some early birthday cake, and I will catch you online.
Thank you. Pleasure being on your podcast, Wes, and I'll see you around the circuit.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, G.
Bye-bye.
So where do you spend your time? Readjust where you spend your business effort, right? Make sure you're working with the right people. Don't just take on anyone that can fog a mirror and give you a credit card. Make sure you're doing things for the right reason. If you're losing sleep, if you are not looking forward to what it is you're getting into, use that as a sign to take a moment and evaluate. I'm recording this, publishing it on January 26, 2015, and I am making a lot of changes. I mentioned it last time. But just changing how I structure my business, changing the structure of my team is actually getting smaller. I'm surrounding myself with more focused people, people that are in alignment with the things that I'm going after. And honestly, I'm getting some new clarity on what it is I want to go after. So regardless of where you are in life, in business, you can always change. Okay, you can change your surroundings, change your goals, change your focus. Make sure you're in as good of health as you can be. Make sure you're spending time with family and friends. Make sure you're spending time with the right people in business. Okay, and this does not have to be a gradual change. You listen to this in January. You go, by the end of the year, I'll make these changes. No. I've mentioned it before, but it's been a while. But several years ago, it was 2010, actually. I was just getting an exam for some new life insurance. We're just adding to my policy as we had more kids, believe it or not, us having kids. Wow. But for the first time ever, I did not come back as like the premium preferred or whatever, right? And the super best health. I was just like average health. And it was because basically I was overweight. They said I had fatty liver enzymes or something like that. And the doctor said, lose some weight. So I was like 228, which is about the weight I've been really since being a senior in high school. And I've gone up and down. I've gone as much as 241. I've gone down to 205 since then. But playing sports and all, I'm a bigger guy, so 228 to me wasn't a big deal. But I wasn't working out as hard, so the weight had shifted to a little more fat and a little less muscle. So the results came back. It was the day before Thanksgiving. And, most people would say, hey, man, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, you know what, start in 6 weeks. And it would be totally understandable, right? But I said, no, I've got a goal. I'm going to start now. And I started now. And what ended up happening was By January 1st, I had lost 15 pounds. And those enzyme levels came down to normal, and I got the preferred rate on the insurance, and all was well. But my point is, you can start right now. Okay, you can start immediately on whatever it is you want to work on, whether it's losing weight or making more money or changing the business, changing the relationship with your family, your spouse, whatever. Okay, so yeah, some things do take time, and it took me 6 weeks to get to reach that short-term weight goal, but I began the effort immediately. And I've always said it, pull the trigger and ride the bullet, as Roy Williams always says, and I love that quote. Facebook's is something along the lines of be bold, move fast, and break things. Okay, you need to do the same. Most people fail because they fail to start. So get started. Use this inspiration from Gene and pull yourself up. Okay, dust yourself off if you're finding yourself in that fallen position right now, and get back after it. Okay, a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, you'll be glad you started today. All right. If you need some help in the sales side of things, please check out 30daysalesgrowth.com. Mention type in the word podcast in the promo code. You can save yourself a few bucks. But either way, it's super affordable. And it's 30 in-depth lessons conducted by me to help you sell more. Okay. It's the exact things I've gone through and how I have done business at least since 2006, as I learned that from my own sales training mentor. Back then. And as always, please leave a comment on iTunes when you get a chance. Leave a 5-star review. I'd appreciate it. And remember to sell different.